Okay, so I have decided to go ahead and also do a video on ship design where mostly I'm looking at the components and explaining them to the best of my ability. I might be wrong in some of these areas, but I hope not. So basically, you go into your ship design templates, and I'm going to go to ships for now, state ships, and I'm just going to pick my destroyer. I'm going to do click on auto upgrade. Didn't make any changes there. So basically, if you hit auto upgrade, it would change this to like a Mark 5. But just so I can go in there and edit and fiddle around with it, I want to go ahead and say manual upgrade, and it automatically changes it to Mark 5. Okay, so the things that you'll see on here. First up, I'm going to start with, well, let's start over here. So the idea behind this particular design is I'm making a long-range missile frigate or destroyer that's going to sit in the back and just launch missiles at long range. Now, down here, sort this by category and go to missiles. Under here, it tells you some information. It tells you the maximum range. Right now, because of some technology upgrades, I have a range of 1,200. So in order to make this destroyer sit at maximum range, I want to keep it at standoff. So if it's, I want him to always stand off. I don't want him to ever get close. So if he can stand off, your different ones here are evade. Something you would use for evade would be like your carriers, since they can be pretty much anywhere in the solar system. You want to have them on evade always, in my opinion. Standoff is going to keep them at the maximum range of your longest ranged weapon. All weapons are going to keep you at the maximum range of your shortest range weapon. And then point blank is going to get all up in their mug. So some weapons will have a loss of strength or power every certain distance. So this one will give them their maximum strength of their weapons when they fire. So that's how you do your fleet strength, or your stance rather, as far as distance, their roll. So if they're stronger, if let's say I wanted to have, so like cancel this one, I have one that I'm using as a boarding ship. So that didn't do it. All right, so I've got it set to always stand off, which will be at its maximum range whenever they're stronger. In other words, before they've been whittled down. Now, you might actually be of the philosophy that you want to have them be point blank and just charge right on in there and try to capture ships, which would be fine. But since I've got my fleets are primarily made up of long range missiles, and it actually might be better for me to keep them on evade until they're whittled down, and then they can charge in. But in either case, once they become weak enough, they're going to move to point blank, where they can, at that point, try to do their boarding thing. Now, how they board and so on, that's actually set up in the diplomacy, no, in the policies. So in your policies, how they behave as far as capturing ships are way down here under boarding and capture. So I've got mine when the tech is higher or larger than we can build, we're going to capture them. Sometimes you can put them on always capture. So I always want to capture them. I probably should have that set up since that's what these ships are fully designed to do. So just always capture. And then when I capture them, I just disassemble them for the resources. You could have this set to always enlist. Really, they'll kind of you'll get a pop up on them, and you can decide at that point anyway what you want, by clicking on the ship when you capture them. But that's how the capturing works. I want to back out of this and get back into where it was. So back on that, they will then go to point blank. Now I've got another ship that I use. Well, here's the carrier. The carrier I want to always evade. So hitting the wrong button. manually upgrade. So I've got it always on evade. They'll just sit in the back. And now I also got another one that's like a damage soak where it's got tons of shields and armor, and I've got them to go to um, all weapons so that they stay in range, and then they'll just hopefully whittle them down a little bit. But anyway, the other things on here, so let me get back to my long range frigate. This is just what I'm playing with now. Where did that one go? Destroyer. Okay, so on the destroyer, the next thing on here is invasion. This is for when you want to get go in to try and invade the planet. You would have this set. You either do it immediately. So if you have if you had this set up for troop carriers, you might have it to go in immediately. So as soon as you bring them into that sector, they'll just go right into it. Or you could wait until when it's clear, however you want to set that up. Your flee, you can have them flee, and depending on different things here. I usually keep mine set on when the armor is at 50% and shields at 20. You could have them set to never flee. And actually, if you're going to be watching your battles anyway, you might want to do this, and then that way you can decide when they flee. But I just keep mine on this by default. Odds are when they get to that point, they're not going to be able to make it away from them anyway, even if they do try to flee. But at least if they've got a little speed on them when they go to sprint, they'll be able to maybe kite them a little bit. So that's how you work this. Now I'm going to move over here, and you'll see energy collection, reactor power output, static energy, excess energy output, so on. What you want to do here, and I said this wrong on the first video, there's a couple things here. As far as the energy output, you want this to be more than this plus this. Now, I have heard that when ships go into sprint, they're not usually firing anyway, and that when they're in battles, they usually stay at cruiser speed, so you might be able to get away with just being able to have more than this energy at cruise plus this full weapons. If I went that way, then it'd be somewhere around 190. If you went with that and sprint, then you'd want it around 250. Now, I have really good reactors, so if I pull one reactor off, it's going to drop it down below. Let me see if I can find my reactor. It's really hard to find these things sometimes if you don't just memorize the icon, which I have not done. Here's my reactor. If I pull one off, yeah, it drops it down to 260, which would be, or 236 would be right around it. So instead, I like to just keep it on there. But I'm not going to worry about it. I'll put it back on here in a second. Actually, over here, if you sort by category, it's a little bit easier to find. Reactors are right here. Now I'm back up to this. Now you'll notice another thing here, static energy usage. This is how much it uses at rest. So you have a ship and it's just sitting there, it's going to use energy. Now, before you have the ability to get energy collectors, you just need fuel a lot. But once you get those energy collectors, you want to make sure that you have an energy collection that's greater than your static energy. And then when they're parked, and it depends on where they're parked, the closer to a star they park, the better, more efficient it is. But it'll pull enough energy so that hopefully you're not using fuel. So that's where that comes in. And here I've got my energy collectors, just ECL. So if I wanted to bump that up, I'm now collecting 60. So I've got a pretty decent research now where each one is 30 units. Okay. Down here, your fuel type is Caslon. And until you research hydrogen reactors, it will always be Caslon. That's where you're going to want to have, you're going to want to put a gas mining station on everything that you find that has a decent Caslon output, especially in regions towards area you plan to move towards, because you need to be able to refuel. You can refuel at bases. You can also refuel at gas mining stations. You can also use a supply ship. What you do is you park that and deploy it on a star sorry, not a star, on a planet that has Caslon, and you can use that as well. I don't find those to be particularly convenient, but you can do that as well. But so this is important. You need to know you are using Caslon. Fuel capacity, that's not so much important as this is down here. Your range. Right now, with the amount of fuel that this thing carries, it would have a maximum range of 7 sectors. That's how far it can go, not how far it can go and come back. Down here, you have your different speeds. Now, the two that you want to watch for are your sprint and then your hyper. As far as your sprint, you just want to have it up to, depending on your ship. Now, this is a long-range missile frigate. I want them to be able to outrun everything so it could stay at range. So I've got it pretty high. I think you'll find that maybe the average is around 30 of base ships. And if you get down below 15, you get to where it's just way too slow. Your turning radius, I usually keep mine around 15 degrees as it turns 15 degrees per second. But you can increase that with your, getting back over here, on your engines, you have your maneuvering thrusters would increase that. Now I have two different thrusters here. I wonder why it's showing. Usually if you have this checked, it'll only show you the most recent ones, but I'm going to be using my Proton is my most efficient. Which one do I actually have on here? I'm not worried about it. Oh, here it is. Thrusters, Proton. So that will, Proton thrusters, if I pop a couple more on there, see how it bumps this up? And I can pull some off and bring it back down. Now, when you do that, you'll want to take note that it requires more energy to get the sprint. That's where you want to have that sprint plus your total energy at max weapons to be less than your excess energy. Now over here, your hyperdrive, you just want to make sure it's maxed out. If you don't have enough excess energy to cover that 140, which if you're always trying to get it between this and this, you'll be fine. But if you just forget to do that and your excess energy isn't at least 140, you won't be able to get your max hyperdrive speed, which you'll always want to make sure it's at maximum. Now, moving over to down here, this is where you can see some of what's going on with the different components. I usually don't pay attention to that except on weapons. So like over here, you can see my max range of a velocity shard is 700. My Type 2 missiles are 1200. And I actually have Type 2 missiles, even though velocity shards are my higher tech ones, they don't have the same range. So I might use, I have to make a decision on what I'm going to do there. I'm sorry, the velocity shards are torpedoes. My mistake. I do have ships that are my brawlers, the soak ones, and my damage soak ones, and my boarders. They use the torpedoes. Now the difference here, this is where you look at different things. So on torpedoes, you'll notice it has a range of 700. Your basic torpedo, I think, is 400. It has a damage of 16, but it will lose 2 points of damage per every 100 distance. So at max range, you're actually going to have, what does that be, about 3.5? So times 2 would be 7. It would actually only be about 8 damage at max range. This one you want to get as close as possible. Whereas on your missiles, they lose 0 for every 100 distance. So it doesn't matter how far you are. If you make contact, the damage is going to be the same. You'll notice that as well for your laser weapons. It loses 1 per 100 on this one. Now, I don't know. I think your rail guns, yeah, they don't lose any damage per distance, but they lose other things like accuracy. And then you'll also notice some of them have different bonuses. Like anything that's not, anything that has an impact is going to do less damage to armor. Because armor is designed to resist impact. Anything that's going to be laser is not going to have any negative impact to the armor. So if you want to mix them up, you can have your long range stuff bringing down the shields, and then your ion cannons in my case, not ion, I'm sorry, my velocity shards do not have any negative to armor. So if I'm whipping away at them from a distance to bring their shields down, they still do damage to armor, but they do 50% less damage to armor. Once those shields are down, then my damage soak ones that are just brawlers that are going to be up there, point blank range, they're going to start really chewing up that hull, armor first and then hull. Now over here, this is where all these things together, you usually want to, if you have anybody that's going to be up close, you want to have a mix, because these guys are just focused on long range. They're all the same. And then you have your point defense. Now, point defense in this game shoots down fighters. If you play Stellaris, point defense shoot down missiles. But that's not what it does. For missiles, you have countermeasures. So I'm going to skip that thought for now and just continue moving over here. Down here, if you have fighters, you would have fighter capacity. You would have the damage from the fighters. So if I were to bounce out of this and go into my carrier, my carrier has fighter power as well. So this thing here does 648 damage, I believe, is how that's supposed to be when all my fighters are out. Now, fighters get shot down, so that dwindles. They do reproduce, or I'm sorry, get rebuilt during combat, but I believe it's very slow. I'm not 100% sure what the speed is on that. But as you move across over here, you'll see my shields. I like to have them up in the, if I'm going to be close in, I want to have them really high, maybe 3,000. These guys try to evade and stay away, and I can't put so much on it because it affects my maximum size. And that's going to be the thing, is size is going to be the limitation. Also with carriers, you have to have a certain percentage of your ship be carrier bay. So that also affects how much room you have for like shields. So that's my shields, that's my armor. I'm not sure where reactive armor comes from. Countermeasures, it's either going to be some of these things, putting multiple components does not affect. Countermeasures, I believe, is one of them. Boarding defense, that's affected by your pods. Where are they here? Troops. So the more troops I have, I gotta go into go back to the long range missile. Okay, so my point defense is, I'm sorry, not point defense, troops. If I add troops to it, you'll notice that I get more boarding defense. So troops are used, or these troops, there's different kind of troops. You have troops that are like troop carriers. These are the troops as far as boarding parties. Boarding parties are used for both defensive, and then also would be for offense if you're going to do a boarding assault, which is over here. So I could, right now I'm not getting any warnings, so I could continue to bump it up. Now, if I stick like another reactor, I'm going to get a warning because I believe I'm close. I don't need, actually, wow, I'm really undersized. I must have had a recent upgrade in size and I haven't haven't redone this. But that's where you would look for that. Industry, I don't ever use this. I believe this is mostly for your private sector ships. But that's pretty much it. And then you go through here. Here's your armor, your troops, like we said. Crew command, that only ever takes one. You only ever need one of that. Duty-free zone, that has to do with your ability to trade on spaceports. So all your spaceports that you want to make money on, you want to make sure it has one of these. Countermeasures, you can only have one that makes any difference, but if I pull them all off, you'll notice that drop down to none. If I put one on, it goes to 10. If I put any more on, it doesn't do anything. ECM targeting, you only need one of those. Repair damage control, only need one of those. Construction yards are for construction, construction ships and for bases. Energy collector, your movement, we looked at that. gas extractor. These are for mining vessels. Your fighter bays. Now they are very expensive, but apparently, there we go. I can still hold more on this, so I'm going to definitely upgrade that later. Your hab and life. Now, a lot of people use their base ships, your destroyer, either frigate, destroyer, cruiser, battleship, or I think my mod is destroyer, light cruiser, heavy cruiser, battleship. They'll do them by how many hab and life modules they have on them. So, so they might have like all their destroyers would be only the biggest they could build with just 2 hab and life. Light cruisers would be 4 hab and life. And these are just artificial restrictions they put on themselves so that they can do different size ships to match up kind of like the modern day, what you would think of as a destroyer being smaller than a capital ship. But again, in this game, they're just placeholders. So I'm not doing that. I'm just using my my long range missile frigate. I just keep small so it can be a little bit quick. And you can do compare the cost of them. It is a little bit less cost efficient to do that, but if they're not going to get shot down as much because they're staying at long range, it won't work out. Getting back down here to, so that's your hab and life. Every time you go up in size too much, you'll have to add more hab and life. But keep in mind that when you improve technology, your hab and life will become more efficient. So you'll want to go back in and do your ship design to either increase your ship size or to back off your hab and life because they won't require as many of them, just to keep it efficient. Now, once you have a ship design in place, usually it's just the components that are being upgraded. So you can just hit the auto upgrade and that'll upgrade your components. So let me just pause where I am here. Back in here, whenever you hit auto upgrade, that makes any component that has a newer component of that type automatically upgrade to the newest component. If you're early game and you're discovering components like shields, you have to actually go and add them to it. So you'll have to go to manually upgrade. And manually upgrade, you'll add the shield component to it. Once it's added, you'll never have to add the shield component again unless you're just adjusting how much shields you have. You'll be able to auto upgrade and it'll just put the more current version back in there. So going back into this, sorry, manually. Okay, so back down to where we were, crew, troops. This is where if you want all your troop carriers would have this. I usually automate my troop carriers. Well, actually, that's not true. Recently, I've stopped that because they don't put enough armor and shield on them. You really don't want to lose your troop carriers. So I really buff those up with a lot of armor and shield. They don't have to be super fast. They do have to have at least, I believe, 15 to 20 speed over here, cruise speed. If they don't have at least that much, it might be sprint, then they can't catch up to the planet when it's moving in order to be able to land their troops. So I would keep it at least above 20 on cruise. Let's see here. Recreational center, this is the thing that you put on your star bases. And that was also entertainment or medical center. Let's see here, up here. No, that's your colonization one. Oh, right here, it's right above it. All right, so these are your research labs, construction. As a general rule, you need you need 10, no, it's 1 construction plant for every 10 construction yards. That's the general rule that I've read on forums. So if you bump up your construction capability up to above 10 different construction yards on your star bases, you want to add an additional plant that manufactures that part. So each one of these manufactures a particular part and it lines up. So these energy plants produce components that are fall under your energy research tree, weapon under the weapons research tree, and so on. This is your reactor, your sensors, your basic sensors. Now, long range sensors you don't necessarily have to have on your ships. It's good to put them like on your capital ships. But this is where if you have a bunch of explorers where the universe is already explored, you can start putting these long-range scanners on there and then just park your explorers around the outskirts of their territory to be able to spy on your enemy. And sometimes you might even be able to park it right in their territory if it's in dead space. I'm not sure if they come looking for you or not, but if it's right outside their borders, usually you can still see enough to at least get early detection of fleets coming in at you. That's your resource profiler, usually just for exploration ships. I have seen some people put it on constructors. So if their constructor gets into a system that's not explored, I don't know why you would do that. Usually it's just at your pre-warp start that you would do that. Shields, cargo bay. You need this for certain types of ships. Standard accommodation. Oh, that's for passenger ships. There's your troops, your docking bays. That's for your starports. This is what increases your range. So if I put more of these on here, you'll see my range bounce up. So now I'm at 6. Or it was at 4. Just try to max out your range. So that, depending on how far along you are in the game. And when you're building a fleet, you want to make sure all your military ships have roughly the same range so that certain ships don't run out of fuel before others. And then these are all your weapons. So that's pretty much it. Your different weapon types have different bonuses. You can't really read them well here. It's better to read them in the technology area. But that's just building in a nutshell. So let's say if I wanted to just create something brand new, you come here first and then you pick the role. Let's say I want to make a destroyer that's not a long-range missile frigate. Let's say I want this destroyer to run up super quick and just really pound them with some blasters. So I might put on several blasters. Now, this tells you all the things you need to add, but you can usually just go down. I'm going to add some armor. About 240. They're going to be fast, so 240 is going to be fine. I'm not going to worry about boarding. These are going to be cheap ships that aren't going to be worth boarding anyway, so I'm not going to worry about boarding defense. When I hit crew command, it's going to knock this one off. You'll see that I'll meet that criteria for the ship. Once it's done saving here, I'll show you that. Really, for these videos, I should probably have that turned off. Okay, so it came off of here. This isn't going to use that because that's, again, for bases. I want a countermeasure to stop missiles. I want targeting system. I do want basic damage control. I don't need it. I might need an energy collector if these things are just waiting somewhere. Fleets sit parked sometimes. Maneuvering jets. I want these to be pretty nimble. I'll go ahead and put 5 on there. Energy, thrusters. Now, it's not registering anything over here until I'm not sure which one it is going to allow me to register, but I'm just putting some over there for now. And let's see here. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need mineral extractors. Don't need hangar bays. Don't need colonization. I need crew. Do that and that. Okay. And then let's see here. Don't need any of these. No research, no construction, power. There we go. Now we've got stuff. So you notice with one reactor, I'm able to get up to a sprint speed of 53, which is actually pretty good. I will need another one probably, well, definitely, because my firepower is so high. So I'm going to go ahead and bounce that up to there. Now, I must have missed my hyperdrive. Here it is. Now that bumps up here. So now I do have enough power to cover my 50 plus 190, or it'd be 150 roughly. And I'm well above that. If I pull another reactor off, I don't think it'll have enough. I think let's try 160. So it would not. I did some bad math there. All right, so 200. What did I just do? Oh, I'll put another hyperdrive. Sorry. When you start over here, if you click and then you click back, it pulls back the same one. But if you do it the other way around, it does not. So if I click maneuvering jets and wanted to put it back on, I can't do that because it's going to go to my hyperdrive. So let me go back to my reactor. Reactors under R. There. So that plus 50 is 250. Actually, that's right around perfect. So 194 plus 50, 244, 249. So that's about perfect. Then let's see here. I'm probably going to need some more because some of these things are going to take energy. Basic proximity array. I don't need long range scanners on here. I do need shields. So if I bump them up to just like 2 of them, that would keep them pretty small, quick, cheap. I could give them a little more if I wanted to, so I'll do that. Now, if you notice, that increases my static energy over here, which is fine. We're going to be well below static. Now, what is it saying I'm still missing? I'm missing my fuel. This will come up here. Fuel. Here we go. I want to keep mine above 5, so I'm going to just do that, 10 of them on there. So I got plenty of fuel. Now, I still don't have enough Hab in life, so let me go up here. There's that. And there's that. Then if I wanted to give it a name, I'm going to say, oh, I don't know. So that's it. And then once I get out, I save it. Click save. Now I've got that ship. So now I've got 2 destroyers here. Now the problem here, you notice this one replaced the other one because it's more recent. So over here I have the latest buildable. I want to keep it on non-obsolete. And now, if I sort, you'll notice I have both of my destroyers, my Pegasus and my Falcon long-range missile. Now, this will cause, when you start upgrading ships, you need to be sure which one you're upgrading to, because it might just default to the most recent design, which would be the Pegasus. Now, easy way to upgrade groups of ships are from here. So if you know you just upgraded a bunch of stuff, you can do it 2 ways. You can update individual ships by going to Roll, Ships, and you can sort by. The problem with that is, like say all these battleships, you don't know which battleship is which design because it doesn't tell you here. So if you have multiple designs, it can be hard. When you go to retrofit, this will only have one option normally if it's not current. This one's already current. So instead, if I select the, not this, oh, destroyers. Where's destroyers? Did I just pass them? Here. So if I selected a group of these and go to retrofit, I have 2 options. So that's not the best way to do it unless you start using some kind of naming system for all of them that are a certain type on the front end. Not really sure how to do that. The other way to do it is to do it just by fleet. And I believe if you upgrade using this in your fleet, it will upgrade to the same named one. So all my Pegasus will upgrade to Pegasus, and all my Falcons will upgrade to Falcons. So that's how I normally do it, is I'll update a fleet at a time, and I'll know where the fleet is in order to upgrade it. So I'm just going to go ahead and end it here. This is all I can think of at the time. Hope this helps. Thank you very much.